Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Be Well, Be Keto. And today's guest is Thom King. Thom is a part CEO, part personal development wonk, and part biohacker info geek. He is a self-confessed serial entrepreneur, founder of Keto, and an amazing conversationalist. So let's go and say hi to Thom. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Be Well, Be Keto, the show that highlights ordinary people achieving extraordinary results and changing their lives for the better with a ketogenic diet. You too can be healthier and live better by adopting this amazing lifestyle. If you are new to the show, new episodes go live every Wednesday for your encouragement and support. And all show notes can be found at bewellbeketo.com. Listen each week and add the show to your favorites on your best podcast app. And if you know any cool people that would like to share their story, please contact us at support@highenergygirl.com. And if you want to follow us on social media, which I highly recommend, you can either join our Facebook group called High Energy Girls, if you're a girl, or follow us on Instagram and YouTube at The High Energy Girl. Now let's get to this week's episode with your host, Tracy Gluhite. Yep, that's me. Give a woman a fish, feed her for a day. Teach a woman to fish, feed her for a lifetime. Teach a woman to fish, end world hunger. Have you ever wanted to help people improve their health journey? Have you thought about coaching people with a keto lifestyle? Would you like to become an integrative health coach? Well, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, or IIN as we call it, is the largest nutrition school in the country. And in 2011, I graduated from their program and became a health coach. It was completely awesome. We learned over 100 different dietary theories and talk about craziness and confusion. My wish for you is that we can lock arms and create a tribe of health coaches all around the country, all around the world to spread the keto message. If this resonates with you and you would like to look into this option deeper, please go to my blog at highenergygirl.com and click on the link to the right of the homepage. Here you can grab the curriculum guide and see if it inspires you. Since I care so much about my listeners, I negotiated the very best tuition rate for you at IIN. Either you can contact them directly and give them my name, or I will introduce you to a counselor so you can decide if this is a good fit for you and your career goals. Let me know how I can support you in this coaching career opportunity. Hey, Thom, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Tracy, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. I'm super excited for this, and it's a great way for me to close out my week, so I appreciate it. Grateful for you.
Cool. Well, I want to first say thank you so much for my little goodie box. I was thrilled and excited and love what you sent me, so thank you very much for that.
You are entirely welcome, and thank you for your kind words. Yeah, I like sending that stuff out. So,
well, I like eating that stuff. So,
gotcha.
Amazing.
How long have you been? How long have you been keto?
Oh boy, almost 3 years.
Oh, and how's it going for you?
Hey, who's interviewing who? I'm just kidding. I'm totally teasing.
Sorry. I mean, I love to hear people's stories because, it's interesting. I go to a lot of trade shows, because I'm also the CEO of a food ingredient company. So the Keto thing is a side hustle for me. So I get to go to like all these trade shows and run into people, and I give away tons of books. And it never ceases to amaze me that, I'll see somebody that I saw at the trade show, the year before, and they'll stop by the booth and I won't even recognize them. I mean, they're a completely transformed person. So, I mean, it's hugely rewarding. So I love hearing other people's stories, like brain function, if they lost weight, if they were able to, get inflammation markers to come down, and just basic attitude about, like being able to make a mindset shift about how you see yourself and you honor yourself. So it's great. So that's why the questions.
Oh, well, I'm just teasing, but my story's not that great. I mean, I've been studying nutrition for like 12 years, and I've been a integrative health coach for, 8 years, I think. And I was looking for a nutritional protocol because literally a week between, my mom got diagnosed with Alzheimer's and Hashimoto's. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm always about food first.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing some research, and lo and behold, I ran into Maria Emmerich's book, Keto Adapted.
Yeah.
And I read that, and I was very much in disbelief about it. And I thought, there is no way. Like, I was so against low carb because I didn't really understand it, and I didn't understand keto for sure. And so I just started doing a ton of research, listened to Dominic D'Agostino's podcast with Tim Ferriss.
Nice.
And I mean, I just kind of did a ton of research before I dove in, and I ended up losing like 18 pounds, which is good. I just kind of feel weird because like most of my guests have lost a lot more than that. And I'm doing it mostly for me for health purposes because my genes suck. And it's true. My dad's had cancer like 5 times. My mom has been on multiple medications. She's only 75 and she walks like she's 95. So it's just kind of like I want to age. One of my taglines is aging stronger. And, I want to completely do away with the whole genetic, or epigenetic thing, or not do away with it, but not express those genes by making good choices.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, I mean, I sort of adopted keto for different reasons. I mean, I work in the sweetener space. So my company supplies sweeteners to manufacturers that make keto products. And so it was probably 4 years ago that, I was in Las Vegas for a trade show and, went to dinner with one of our suppliers and, had steak and potato and dessert and wine, and got back to my room and just looked in the mirror, and I'm just like, I'm just disgusted with myself. I wake up in the morning, I feel sluggish, I've got brain fog. I was carrying about 35 pounds of extra weight. And I mean, I felt a little bit, I guess, like an imposter, because I was working in that, in the health and nutrition field, but wasn't very healthy and, wasn't really focused on nutrition that much. So at that point, I think that the pain of my crappy behavior exceeded the payoff, and I just started journaling about what I was going to do to change direction in my life. And part of it was, as going keto and really jumping into keto, not as a diet, because I played around with keto for years as a diet, which doesn't work. I mean, you gain a few pounds, you go on keto, you lose a few pounds, you go off keto. And what happens is you get this big sort of yo-yo effect. And I think that that's really bad for your system. But, at that point, it's like, I need to adopt a different lifestyle. And that's what led me to keto, led me to, fitness and getting in shape. So it was, I'm grateful for all of it.
Awesome. So when was that?
That must have been 2015. Like, I started it in 2014, so it was at the Supply Side West trade show in 2014, and it was just, I wasn't living a really super great, healthy lifestyle. Like, I loved pizza, and I ate a lot of pizza, and I'd knock back a bottle of wine with the pizza. And, while 35 pounds of extra weight is not extreme, and I'm 6'2", so I carry it fairly well. It was the other health factors that came with it, like the high blood pressure. At one point in time, my blood pressure was 190/99, which is...
Ooh, you're lucky you're alive.
That is what the doctor said. He double checked it, and he's like, yeah, we have to put you on blood pressure medication. So I was on blood pressure medication for a good solid year. And, after adopting a ketogenic lifestyle, my blood pressure now is like 120/80 consistently.
And it was just from food?
It was from food and wine. So like red wine was my thing. And, I would drink, I don't know, probably at least a half a bottle of wine every night. I would just come home from work, pour myself a glass of wine, then have another glass of wine, and 2 glasses of wine usually constitutes half of a bottle. So, I was drinking a lot of wine, which also increased my ferritin levels. So my ferritin levels, and that's an indicator of how much iron is in your blood. My ferritin levels were at 960, and normal, I think, is between like 50 and 150. So I was off the chart, which, when you combine that, when you combine high blood pressure with high iron levels in your blood, that's just a recipe for a heart attack. And, I felt like that's probably where I was.
Wow. Okay. So then you went keto. What did you do with the wine?
Well, I stopped drinking wine. What I did with it, I mean, it's still sitting in a cellar, but I mean, I'll occasionally have a glass of wine, but I'm not hitting the wine like I used to. I might have a glass of wine every 2 or 3 weeks. I'll have a glass. But I stopped drinking wine, and what I found is that, when you stop doing that, like when you stop drinking wine, it's more of a habit than it is, anything else. So you come home and that's sort of your reward at the end of the day, like having a nice glass of wine or cracking a beer. And, now, I lean into other, sort of other reward systems, like having, some nuts with some sugar-free chocolate, is usually pretty satisfying, or mocktails. One of my favorite things to do is just to put some bitters in, like Zevia. Have you ever had Zevia before?
Yeah.
I love that stuff. So I'll put some bitters in Zevia, and it's kind of a mocktail. You have it on the rocks, and it's just as satisfying without, putting all of that ethanol in your system.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I never thought about that. So you started that, was that almost 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. And at the time you were working for a different company than the Guy Gone Keto company. So are you still there?
Well, okay. So no, I still work for the same company. So the same company that I founded, Icon Foods, in 1999. So I'm old. So it's like, that's my main business. And what we do is we supply sweeteners to sports nutrition companies or any actual food manufacturer that is looking to have clean label sugar reduction in their current formulas. That is my main business. The side hustle is actually Guy Gone Keto, and Guy Gone Keto really sort of incarnated off of my journaling. So I just kept journaling my workouts, my, what was coming up for me, like, body image stuff, self-acceptance. I was writing a lot, and that's what just formed the book. So after about a year and a half of journaling, I had probably a couple hundred pages of fairly decent material, and I just turned it over to a publisher and asked them, hey, can you guys do anything with this? And they're like, are you kidding? This is great. So the book came out, but I was also finding that I couldn't find any condiments, that were really keto friendly, like ketchup. Ketchup has more sugar than ice cream, and barbecue sauce has more sugar than ice cream. So when you think of like barbecue sauce and ketchup and teriyaki sauce, even steak sauce and like the sweet chili sauce in Asian restaurants, all of those are like loaded with sugar. Like a lot of them have around 22 grams of sugar, and nobody uses just a couple teaspoons. They're usually just slathering, ketchup and barbecue sauce and whatever, slathering it all over their meal. And, because I mean, by trade, I'm a food technologist. So I just got in the lab and made ketchup and barbecue sauce and teriyaki sauce and steak sauce that I could use. that, that was high in fat and had no added sugar. Um, and out of it, we just launched the brand. I mean, we started packaging it and people started buying it. And
That's
so
awesome.
it grew organically. And yeah, every day I'm surprised by that. It's like, wow, this is fun.
So you're busy like me and no old jokes. How
I'm
old are
older
you?
than you, 59.
Okay. Well, my husband's going to be 61. So,
Oh,
but I'm 50, I'm 53
good for
and
you.
he's 60. So, yeah.
Nice. You
Yeah.
married young.
I was 24
Nice.
when we got married. Yeah. Almost 30 years. How about that?
That is fantastic. What's the secret?
Humor, I would have to
Right?
say. Yeah. It's all about the sarcasm and, just the joking around. And that's what I would say for sure.
Yeah, it keeps you alive.
So, where are you from?
Well, I was originally born in Wisconsin, and then my family moved to Colorado, and that's, pretty much where I was raised. So I was raised on a farm. So my dad was owned a contracting company, but he also did ranching. So I was basically slave labor for my dad growing up. I went to school, I went to college, and then moved to Arizona. And then from Arizona, I moved to LA and I worked in the entertainment industry. And then about 15 years ago, I moved to Portland, Oregon. And that's where I really, really dug in my roots and started building the ingredient company and wrote the book and trying to get another book out. So, yeah, Portland, Oregon is my home now.
That's awesome. I've never been there. I'm in Northern California, so not too far
Oh,
away, in the South Bay area.
oh,
So,
wonderful. I love that area.
yeah, I was born and raised here, so I don't really know much else. So it's funny. I was like born in San Jose, married in San Jose, went to college in San Jose. You could say I don't get out much.
San Jose is beautiful, though. I mean, that part of California is amazing. I mean, I lived in LA for 15 years, and I always craved going to Northern California because it seems like the people there are different. I mean, they're more eclectic, and I think maybe the further north you go, the more eclectic they become because Portland has some pretty eclectic characters for sure.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, well, I live on a small farm. I live on a 5-acre little farm out in
Oh,
a rural area off the 101 that's about a half an hour south of San Jose. So it's heaven.
nice. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
You guys have any animals or anything?
We have 2 dogs, we have chickens, and that's about. I have a job and a business, so I'm super slammed. I don't have time to take care of anybody but, what I've got. So,
Perfect.
okay, I want to get back to you, my friend.
Okay.
So let's talk about. So you're looking at the hotel room. You had been
Mm,
eating potatoes. You drank wine. Like, let's
mm.
just start chunking it down in juicy detail about what happened next and how you started to feel. Like, I want to hear the details of it.
So yeah, so I mean, the sort of a pivotal point for me was that moment. I was staying in the Luxor, which the Luxor's an older hotel. It probably needs to be torn down. But I had a room, so I had this room that was like an executive room, or I think some sort of a suite that actually had like a big jacuzzi in the middle of the room, and it was just a little, I don't know, I guess brown chicken, brown cow, like kind of like a little sketchy. And the carpet, when I walked on the carpet, it felt sort of sticky.
Ew.
And yeah, and so that sort of set the stage. And I came back to the room, and yeah, I felt super tired, really lethargic, and that's kind of how my life had been for the past few years. And I mean, my grandfather was like my my biggest mentor, and integrity was his, I would say his cornerstone of who he was. And I just looked in the mirror and it's like I just felt like I didn't have very good integrity. I wasn't taking care of myself, but I was preaching the benefits of reduced sugar and clean label sugar reduction. And I think it was a pain pleasure moment because I think human beings are, only really driven by pain and pleasure. Like they avoid
Mm-hmm.
pain and they seek out pleasure. And it was in that moment, when I was looking at myself in the mirror and really doing a pretty hardcore, self-assessment, that when I felt the pain of looking at who I had become had exceeded the pleasure of eating the pizzas and drinking the wine and eating the chocolate cake for dessert and stuff. And at that point, I would say my book, while it's a keto book, it's more of a lifestyle book. It's more about my journey in breaking a bad habit or breaking several bad habits. And, and I'm a big follower of Anthony Robbins,
Mm-hmm.
and he's always, his theory too is to, associate pain and pleasure with different types of habits that you're trying to break. And that's really worked well for me on keeping me on track. Like, is eating the donut, pleasurable enough that you're willing to suffer the pain of going off keto and having to spend, a good solid day or two getting back into keto, and then just how crappy you're going to feel afterwards. So I use that sort of pain pleasure method in just about everything, like working out. Like, is it going to feel better for me to lie in this bed, and sleep in, or, is the reward of actually getting out of bed and hitting the gym and at least getting moving, is that going to exceed the pleasure of, of lying in bed? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but, and sometimes it's just sheer determination and discipline.
Mm-hmm. And it also requires being mindful about it, because so often we do things out of habit, like you were saying, instead of being mindful and asking ourselves, is this going to help me or is this going to hurt me?
Right, 100%. I mean, and mindfulness is really, I would say that mindfulness is a huge point. I think that you need to be mindful when you eat. I think a lot of people do what I call mindless munching,
Uh-huh.
sitting in front of the TV, they're bored eating a bowl of popcorn or whatever it is, but also like really being mindful about what you're eating and how you're eating it. Like, are you chewing enough? And what I found that was pretty interesting is I, occasionally I'll have somebody come up to me and recognize me from the book, which is hugely flattering unless it's a vegan. Um, in which case it's usually not flattering, and usually the vegans are like, you're destroying the planet by eating only bacon and cheese. And I'm like, and I think that that's one of the biggest misunderstandings about keto, is that people that practice keto only eat bacon and cheese. And what I find, and I usually, am graceful about it and tell them, well, I actually eat, more vegetables now than I ever have. The type of vegetables that I eat's a little different. Like, I'm not eating potatoes, and I'm not eating starchy vegetables, and I've eliminated fruit. For except for the occasional berry. But I mean, it always it always makes me sort of take pause and actually reflect on that, because I think I think that when people go to the store and buy meat, that they're just buying it processed in a package. You
Uh-huh.
just go through like Whole Foods or Safeway or wherever you do your shopping, and you go into the meat section, it's already cut up and it's just there. And people don't think that that's an animal. Instead, they think, well, that's a steak, and I'm just going to cook it on the grill. And it sort of sanitizes the whole process of how meat is harvested. And I'm also a proponent of hunting and people harvesting their own proteins like that, because I think that if you're intimately involved in that harvesting process, or you don't just buy like um, factory farmed meat, but you buy something that was
Yeah.
mindfully processed and mindfully grown. I think it takes a big shift, and I think it takes a bigger shift if you actually hunt or you experience going to like a rendering plant where, or a slaughterhouse where you see, hey, these are creatures and these are animals, and it's like if you're at a restaurant and you see somebody that just like leaves half of a, steak or chicken on their plate and it just gets thrown out. I think that I don't know, that affects me on sort of a deeper sort of visceral level of, how we waste food and how we don't honor, and we're not mindful of what we're eating, and that there was a certain sacrifice that was made on our behalf.
That's a really good point. It's funny because I believe that that's really true. And what I have a problem with, and I don't want to slam vegans because I think that there's a way to go vegan and there's a way not to go vegan. I've seen vegans eat, chips and crackers and, all this fake food because there's no animal products yet. It's like, I think it's, Michael Pollan calls it a food-like substance, not real food.
Right.
And to me, that's not the way to go vegan. But if you're going to go vegan because you're going to be plant-based and eat mostly fruits and vegetables and natural things that grow in nature, hey, and that makes you feel good, go for it, And I think you can be a keto vegan really simply just by using like olive oil and avocado oil and, all the nuts. And that's, I think that's really an easy thing to do, but it's the fake food vegan that I have a problem with.
Right. And I'd also like to hear your opinions on B12 because, human beings are I think the only creatures on the face of the planet that are unable to methylate their own B12. So what are your thoughts on supplementing B12 or being a vegan and being B12 deficient?
Well, that's a great question. I think if you're B12 deficient, you definitely need to get some injections. There's like this little place next to me that does a happy hour Tuesday. And so a person can go in and get like a little $20 cocktail of B12. Here's a funny story for you. And a lot of people don't know this story. So back when I was first starting my business, I want to say it was like 2013-ish. And like that's when I was wanting to do a blog and just kind of putting my foot in the water. And I hired a branding coach and she said, go around and ask people what their experience of you is. Like get some adjectives from people. And so the biggest adjective I got was high energy. You have lots of energy. You're really energetic, blah, blah, blah. So I came back with that to the girl and I told her and she's like, oh, perfect. High energy girl. And so that's my brand and my blog and everything. And then maybe a month or so later, I get a blood test, just standard physical, get a blood test, and my B12 is off the charts. It's super high, right? And my mom's like, hey, I take that for energy. I was just like, nice. Well, there you go. That's why I have all the energy. I just have high B12.
Wow, that's super interesting. And why do you think that happens?
I have no idea. I think it's just the way my body is. It's just high B12. I have lots of energy. I wake up at 4:45. I get up. I go to the gym. I literally, I hate to say this and admit this, but I work most of the day. I go to the gym. I walk my dogs in the evening, but I'm a workaholic. Yeah. And because I love it, it's not hard for me. And then when I go to bed around 9:30, I sleep like a log. So
I want to know your secret. How do you do that? Like my sleep patterns vary. Like I'm very careful about like having a ritual before I go to bed, and turning off all blue screens and everything else. But if you're sleeping like a log and you're sleeping 100% through the night, you have a secret to that?
Well, first of all, what I would say is try not to have like a lot of water or anything before bed, so that you don't have to wake up to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Second thing I would say is take magnesium before bed. I take about 400 milligrams. I also wear earplugs and I wear a night mask, a really nice, soft, high quality eye mask. Because my husband comes to bed late and he's a night owl and he'll come to bed and read. And so he'll turn on the light and then that would wake me up. So I also have 2 fans. So cold, dark room, right? So the cold is the 2 fans. The dark is my eye mask. And that's it. So I used to do better. I'm super busy with my company right now. But I used to like come in my room and foam roll and do some stretching. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of fallen out of that habit in the last 6 weeks. So my intention is now that it's getting darker earlier, I could go back into that habit. But I think it's important to, like you said, have a ritual. I do have blue blockers, but I also have the screen control thing on everything. So it kind of times out. It does that. Have you seen the amber screens that you can install on your products?
Yep. I've been using that. I haven't started doing like stretching before I go to bed. But I'm curious about that. I'm like curious if that will really help my sleep.
Well, another thing you could do is take like a magnesium bath, because the magnesium is amazing how it relaxes your muscles. Mm-hmm. And I swear by it. Like people say, oh, I take melatonin. Not the same thing.
Right.
So, but stretching I do just because it feels good and I lift a lot of weights. And so it just kind of is a way for me to tell my body, okay, it's getting time for bed, you know?
Yeah, I think that the the key on that is the ritual and doing it every single night. Yeah, I'm envious of that. I'm going to start doing it more.
And foam rolling. Oh my gosh, like foam rolling your neck. I don't know what it is, but when I foam roll my neck and like the base of my skull, it feels so good. And and I always say if it hurts when you're foam rolling, you need it more. Like it's not supposed to hurt.
Right. Yep.
So
I agree.
You want to look for the hurt spots, you know?
Nice.
So let's get back to you. So you decide. I'm like gonna dig, okay? So
I know I'm so bad about that.
So you decide you're gonna go keto, and how did you start? And what did you eat? And did you track your macros? Did you do fasting? Like, how did it look like for you?
Well, it looked like a big ugly train wreck in the beginning, because I thought that I would be able to have cheat days, and so I would go the entire week. And, you know, I would supplement with BHB because I think that's a easy sort of a cheat. Like if you want to get yourself into ketosis, just hit the BHB and you don't have to be so focused on diet. So I wasn't super disciplined in the beginning. And then I would take days like I would have one day out of the weekend where it was like, I can eat anything that I want. And I would go crazy with it, like have a hamburger and French fries and, a slice of pie and, and a beer. And, what I found is that you can't do that. Mm-hmm. Like there's no such thing as a cheat day. And I know people, that I talk to that are like, well, I do dirty keto. And I'm like, dirty keto? What's dirty keto? And it's sort of keto. And for me, that doesn't work. I mean, I don't think that I have great metabolic flexibility. Particularly since I've been keto so long, if I look at a carb, I'll put on a couple pounds. So in the beginning, it didn't start out well because I didn't have the discipline. So I would have a cheat day and then I would start all over. And then I would say the thing that really, really jump-started my success was fasting. And so I started out doing a fast every other week. So I would do a 36-hour fast. My first fast was a black fast, which is having no water, no contact with water. And that was probably as far as like a heady sort of a spiritual experience. That black fast was probably the biggest one. But I mean, I always still find fasting to be somewhat of a spiritual experience for me. So the fasting every other week really, I mean, that jump started the weight loss, but more importantly, it jump started the mental clarity part of it.
Wait a minute. You did I've called it a dry fast, not a black fast, but you did a dry fast for a whole week?
No, I just did a dry fast for 36 hours.
That's a long time. Okay. And then you said fasting every other week. So you did that
Yeah.
once every other week for 36 hours.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that's like a day and a half.
Yeah, like a day and I'd usually start like a Friday night and then just end it on a Monday morning. So sometimes it'd be in that 36 to 48 hour window. But that's when I really started noticing like a big shift, like a big shift in, in brain function and big shift in weight loss. Like I was losing a lot of weight, and my body composition seemed to change quite a bit. Because a lot of people, I think, are under the impression that when you fast that you feel weak and tired. And I would say maybe your first fast would be that case. But I found that the more I fasted, the more energy that I would have, like during the fast. Like I could do a workout and not feel depleted. And whether my body was just burning glycogens or whatever the process was, it seemed that I had more energy. So I moved from actually doing every other week a 36-hour fast. After I would say 6 months or so, that's when I adopted a 16/8 intermittent fast. And that's pretty much what I do now. So I'll go 16 hours fasted and then have an 8 hour feeding window. And my main meal is usually lunch that I have about 1 o'clock maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be my main meal. And then I shut the food down usually before 7 o'clock. And my dinner usually is just snacking, like on nuts or, seeds and stuff like that.
And so when you did that fast every other week, did you always do it without water?
No. So good question. The first one I did without water because I have sort of an extremist personality, and it's like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to commit to fasting often. I want to indulge the hardest fast first, and so I actually researched fasts and which ones are most effective, and the dry fast seemed to be the most interesting, and it also sort of triggered the most sort of introspection. And so the first one I did was dry, and then after that I just would incorporate water. And then probably after 5 or 6 of those I got a little more lenient and started incorporating tea.
What about coffee?
um I didn't really have any coffee, and during my fast, I don't really have any coffee, mostly just tea, because I don't want the coffee has a tendency to play around with my blood sugar levels a little bit, and
Mm.
where tea doesn't. So, during my fast, I try to stay away you know, from coffee.
So what about when you aren't fasting? Do you drink coffee?
I do. I'm a coffee addict.
Okay,
So
so didn't you get a headache?
when I was off coffee,
Yeah.
I didn't. So I would say that the coffee addict thing might be a bit extreme. Like since I've been keto, I drink less coffee because I was drinking coffee as a way to, have more energy. So I would have like a cup of coffee at 2 or 3, 4, 5 in the afternoon, to keep myself up. But since I adopted keto, um, I don't, I'm not drinking as much coffee, and because I'm more concerned about sleep deprivation, I usually shut it down before 12 noon. So I'll have my last cup at noon.
How many do you have before noon?
Wow, you're going there, aren't you? You
Yeah.
really want to know.
Well, I want to see if I beat you or you beat me.
In the morning, I usually have between 4 and 6 shots of espresso, and that usually gets the blood pumping. And then by the time I get to the office, I'll probably have just 2 cups of either black coffee or coffee with a little half and half in it.
Okay, you beat me. I have
I
usually
did?
2 to 3 cups. Like I'll have one at
Oh,
5,
Oh.
on the way to the gym,
Uh-huh.
one around 7 and one around 9 that I usually sip on for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's good. You have way less of a habit than I do.
But I would think that if I gave it up for a day and a half or whatever to fast, I would get a massive headache like on day one.
I've had those headaches before, but for some reason, I'm not getting them anymore. And if you felt like you were getting, if you felt like you were getting headaches like that, I mean, you could always take some BHB.
Now, what BHB do you take? Because usually it tastes like butt.
Okay,
Just being real here.
nope. I appreciate you keeping it real. So there's one. It's a multi-level company called Prove It.
I've had that.
Yeah, and I've gone through several different BHBs, and the one that I find that tastes the bestish and is the most effective is definitely Prove It.
I see most of theirs are too sweet for me, but I do like one of them that's kind of sour.
Yeah.
That they have. I can handle that one. Yeah, that one was pretty good, the sour one.
Yeah, that's the one that I use most often. Or
Oh.
if I'm really looking to get into some deep keto, I have some actually BHB esters that a friend of mine gave me, and those will definitely get you into the 4s and the 5s within an hour. But if you think that the BHB salts taste like butt, I would say that the esters taste closer to a mouthful of kerosene.
Oh, yeah. See, I had this company.
Hmm.
Oh, maybe it's not BHB. I don't know. They sent me some product for ketones and it's pretty good. I went and I took it really early in the morning. Then I went and I hit a max on my deadlift.
Wow.
Yeah, I set a new PR after taking those pills, but you have to take them like right when you get up because it takes about 45 minutes to kick in. The company's Optimizers. They make really good digestive products.
Oh.
Yeah, they're like the best enzymes, and they've had this test where they put meat in a glass with enzyme, and just the way it just goes, it's really cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, they have good stuff. But they showed how they have this video on their website that shows what you do if you, or shows like if you take their enzyme and put it in a glass with water and meat.
Yeah.
And how it just dissolves. So it's kind of cool.
What's the name of the company?
Optimizers. So it's BIOPTIMIZERS. And if you do .com/high energy, they're offering like a 20% discount to my listeners.
/high energy. I'm there.
Yeah, they have good stuff. I mean, I was taking their products for probably a year before I reached out and had them come on the show. So yeah, it's good.
I'll have to check that out because I'm always interested in enzymes.
Yeah, I take their enzymes, their probiotics. I just started taking like one of the cleanse products because I was diagnosed with multiple food sensitivities, like ridiculous amounts. And so I'm like really, really working on gut health because I got diagnosed recently with eggs and I have chickens, which sucks, and almonds, yeast, and I still can't figure out how to stay away from the yeast because that is really tough.
Interesting. I mean, because you use nutritional yeast.
Well, my favorite form of yeast, I guess, was fermented foods. So I didn't even realize that was a yeast-containing product. I thought it was bread. I don't need any yeast, And then I started looking into it. I'm like, shoot, I have fermented foods. Like I was eating every day, sauerkraut and dill pickles. And,
Yeah.
I'd make it myself. And now it's like anything fermented has yeast in it.
Interesting. And then, so what sort of symptoms were you displaying?
Just inflammation. As food sensitivity is a delayed response, and a food
Right.
allergy is more anaphylactic.
Right.
So yeah, it was just mostly inflammation, and I'm just always trying to optimize my health.
Right.
So
And
that's
then, so when you were experiencing inflammation, was it like stiffness in the knuckles, or was it like GI stuff? What was that like?
in the knuckle, in my right knuckle. It's my trigger finger.
Oh.
It's my brake hand. It all started going down the mountain. My husband and I were mountain biking, and he took me down this hill, and I
Yeah.
literally had the brake on the entire time.
Oh.
And that's what started everything. But if I eat anything like, if I eat any like vegetable oils, like if I'm out at a restaurant,
Yeah.
or one day my mom and I, she has Alzheimer's, we went to the movie and she wanted popcorn. And so, of course, I didn't resist. And
Right.
I split a popcorn with her.
Yeah.
And the next day I couldn't turn my key on in my car.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy, Tom?
Yeah, that's totally crazy. Wow. And so, wow, that's very, very cool. And so you think that the bio optimizers help that?
Yeah. And eliminating the foods that I'm sensitive to.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's really important because everybody gets inflammation. And what I like to say to people is get a test. I work with a lab in the UK because they test on 4 different arrays. So I think that they're pretty good. And I got tested for 208 different foods. And so I always say eliminate any inflammatory foods and be very committed to it. Because if you bring it back in, the inflammation's going to last for several days. It just doesn't go away really quick. So, and then heal your gut, and then slowly try to reintroduce your favorite foods off your list. But you want to stay off of them like 3 to 6 months.
And then, so when you took that food allergy test, did you like give blood? How did that work?
So I've done multiple ones. Okay. So the latest, so I've done like a stool test. I've done blood test. This one, they send you like a kit and there's like a finger prick. And then they have this little mini vial that kind of sucks it up.
And what was the name of the company that you went through?
Oh, it's Laurentian Labs. They only work with like medical people. So,
Oh, okay.
but
Gotcha.
for the listeners, right now they're having a summer sale. So you can go on my blog. It's highenergygirl.com/food test.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Dr. Mark Hyman recorded a video about food sensitivities back in 2010. And I have his video there because I just love him.
Yeah.
But because in 2010, he was talking about how Europe is testing for food sensitivities and we are way behind, and
Oh, yeah.
how important it is to do this because with knowledge comes power, and you can't fix it if you don't know it's broken.
Yep.
And I also find that people don't realize they don't have symptoms to things, or they don't realize they have symptoms until they eliminate it and then bring it back.
Interesting.
Yeah, because your body just goes, oh, oh crap, she's giving me more eggs, and and then, but when you eliminate the eggs and then you bring them back, you'll notice. And one of my clients, she wasn't losing; she was on a stall, and so I told her to get off dairy, and now she's dropping again. So she ordered a food test because she wants to see what else is affecting her inflammation.
Interesting. And the food test, the links on your website under food test, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And it's
Awesome.
about $100 off right now, because they have a summer special because, a lot of those companies are slow in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a great deal. It's only, when I originally got tested years ago, I want to say I spent about $400. And I can't remember how much the deal is on my site right now, but I want to guess it's maybe $250,
Okay.
which for 208 foods is great. I think I only got tested originally for like 99 foods, and it was like $400. So I don't know. I think it's a good thing. I think knowledge is power.
Yeah, 100%.
So how long did it take you to lose? What did you say, 35 pounds?
Yes. I would have to I could give you the exact day because I actually check my weight still every single day, which a lot of people that I run into think is extreme. And there's other keto people that are like, throw your scale away. I don't really follow that. I'm big about like data collection, so I track my weight every day, check my ketone levels, blood sugar, blood pressure. I would the 35 pounds came off in about 3 months, so 90 days.
Oh, that's good. And then when you check your ketones, what time of day do you check them?
I generally check them first thing in the morning.
Okay.
And if I'm feeling a little janky in the afternoon, I might check them then. But generally first thing in the morning to make sure that, I didn't have anything the night before that that might have thrown me off. Like Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi. Like if I have Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi, anytime like in the afternoon or before I go to bed, and the next morning I wake up and I'm always out of keto.
Wow, even if it's a Zevia?
No, Zevia doesn't affect me that way, which I find to be pretty interesting. And I did get into a bit of a debate on another podcast with a doctor who insisted that stevia, monk fruit, like all the natural high intensity sweeteners, affected blood sugar levels, just like aspartame and sucralose. And I mean, I've done tons of self-experimentation. Like I'm an avid biohacker. So like I've dosed myself with allulose, and I've dosed myself with erythritol, stevia, monk fruit, aspartame, sucralose. And what I found is that aspartame and sucralose actually will elevate my blood sugar levels slightly and bring my ketones down. And so I really researched that quite a bit. And what I found is that you're like the sweet constituents that are in stevia and monk fruit, they're called glycosides, and glycosides exist in nature. So like if you take a piece of grass or something and you bite the end of it, it's like, hey, that's slightly sweet. That's sort of an example of glycosides. So your body knows what to do with that. It recognizes it. It's like, this exists in nature and I know how to process it. I'm not going to, we're not going to metabolize this. It's going to run right through the body. And I think with foods that are chemically created, because sucralose that's the sweet constituent that's in Splenda. Sucralose is a chlorinated sugar molecule. So they treat it with chlorine gas, and it rearranges the molecules so your body isn't able to metabolize it. But what happens is when you take it in, right, when you eat it, it's sweet. Your brain says, hey, this is sweet. Your body says, how do we metabolize this? Which the microbiome is going to metabolize this, which one of your organs is it going to be, the liver is going to metabolize this. What happens is your body doesn't know how to metabolize it because it doesn't exist in nature, and our bodies aren't really designed to take in a chemical. So what happens is that your brain kicks in and says, oh, we don't know what it is. It must be sugar. We're gonna have an insulin response. You get an insulin response, and it drives down your ketones. And yeah, I've gotten into a few debates with people over that, but I can show evidence of it. It's like I'll slam a Diet Coke and check my blood sugar 4 hours later, and my blood sugar will actually be elevated.
Interesting. So let me ask you this. Okay, so I've had people say that. Okay, so first question though, with what you just said, how long does the blood sugar stay elevated after an incident like that?
I found that my blood sugar, like it'll start triggering a blood sugar response around 2 or 3 hours after consuming it, which is sort of delayed. But if I have it before I go to bed, I think because everything slows down at night, I'll notice that my blood sugar levels are elevated in the morning. So I really can't give an exact time frame, but when I've done it during the day, there's usually a 2 to 4 hour window.
Interesting. Now, okay, so I've had people come on here before, and what I've heard is that when you have anything sweet, that it raises insulin. What do you know about that?
I know that that's not 100% accurate.
So have you hacked that? Have you been able to test your own insulin?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And so there's a new sweetener that's out called allulose. And so allulose is actually considered a rare sugar. So it's considered a saccharide, which is basically a sugar. Um, but your body, and it also exists in nature in small amounts. The way that it's made is they take a fructose substrate and they add a bacteria to it, and the metabolite that that's left over is allulose. And so allulose is about 70% as sweet as sugar. So I've been working with this for the past 5 years, and I've experimented a lot with it. Like I've eaten up to 100 grams of allulose, and I've checked blood sugar before and blood sugar after, and it is sweet. But what I noticed is that it actually depressed my blood sugar levels slightly and raised my ketones slightly.
Ah.
hmm So I don't believe when somebody says, hey, if it tastes sweet, it's going to elicit an insulin response. I don't believe that for 1 second, because I've had stevia, and stevia is neutral as far as a as triggering an insulin response. Same with monk fruit. So I've had monk fruit, same thing. That has not affected blood sugar levels at all. And I think that maybe, the confusion is with people that have had aspartame or sucralose or saccharin even, that your
Uh-huh.
body doesn't recognize it. It doesn't recognize it as anything that's in nature, and so it acts like it's a sugar. But no, I don't believe that for 1 second. I mean, I've done tons of in, and albeit it's anecdotal because it's just me checking my own blood sugar level, but it's also my colleagues here. Like I've had people at my company, where we made for one of our clients high protein keto ice cream, and then slathered it with a caramel sauce that I made that was keto, that just used butter, allulose, stevia, monk fruit, and a little bit of sea salt. And it was delicious and amazing. And I literally ate a bowl of ice cream with caramel syrup and then checked my blood sugar and ketones after, and had the same result, where it slightly lowered my blood sugar levels and slightly increased my ketones.
Wow.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to do that test, or if it would help your audience or other people, I'll do it again and I'll videotape it. Videotape it. Who
Yeah.
does videotape anymore? I mean, record it. I'll record it on my VHS.
Does anybody know what that is? What about your 8 track?
8 track, I love 8 track. You stop it.
Well, first of all, your food thing sounds amazing. So that was kind of fun to hear that description. I'm like, my mouth is watering.
Mm.
Yeah, that sounds yummy. And then, so, God, I have so much to ask you. So, so are you, okay, so let's go forward, fast forward a little bit because we're running out of time. Tell me about your company now. So how did you get started in the Guy Keto?
Mm.
And, tell us all about the juicy details on that one.
Well, so the guy on keto was the result of me just not being very happy with myself. I mean, like I was carrying extra weight and feeling sluggish. I mean, the way that I started Icon Foods, which is our sweetener business, is I ran into a guy who came back from Paraguay and had some ground up leaves in a jar, like it was just a paste. And he asked me to try it, and I tried it, and it was about 25 times sweeter than sugar. And this is like in the 90s. And I immediately started to think, wow, if I could unlock those sweet constituents from that leaf, I would have something that could be like an industrial level sweetener. That was about an 8-year journey of being able to figure out how to do that, just using vegetable alcohol and water. But I mean, that sort of spawned the sweetener business. But the sweetener business I started really because, metabolic disease is it's running rampant.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see the effects of that, people with what I call diabesity, I mean, they have diabetes, they're overweight, they end up losing a foot because of nerve damage. I really believed in just making a difference. And so I started the sweetener company purely from that perspective. But then, I just think my discipline was off, and, I just was leading a rather hedonistic lifestyle of just eating whatever I wanted. And that's what led me down the path to keto.
Ah, okay. So then you had the sweetener company first, then you went keto, and then how'd you make ketchup and barbecue sauce and steak sauce and all that?
Well, because I'm a food scientist and a food technologist, and I just needed, I wanted ketchup. I wanted ketchup on my hamburger, and I wanted to have barbecue ribs, because you can't really go to a restaurant and get barbecue ribs because, basically there's 28 grams of sugar that you're going to be taking in. So I just went into the lab and started formulating them, and started using them myself. And then my colleagues, said, you should try selling this. And I'm like, that's a great idea. And so we did. And then the brand just took off, and it was, purely organic, but it was super exciting because people are like, oh, I love these sauces. They're amazing. They keep me in keto. And I'm like, right. Yeah. So it's super fun for me.
Yeah. I love the barbecue sauce because ribs are like one of my favorites.
Right.
And I've been just using like a rub and honestly buffalo sauce on my ribs. And so when I was able to try yours, I was like, wow, this is good. So where can people find your products?
If they just go to guygoneketo.com,
Mm-hmm.
they can get all the products there. I think they're on Amazon. So if you go to Amazon, you can find all of our products. If you go to Guy Gone Keto, I would suggest that you sign up for our newsletter, because I'm always inventing new products and I always need people to try them out. So if you get on that list, we'll do like limited short runs of things. I know that we're working on a spicy garlic ketchup right now and a habanero barbecue sauce. I've got a bake mix, chocolate. What else do I have? I have a prebiotic fiber drink that I'm working on. So I'm always working on things, and before we ever release them, publicly, we usually hit our list and ask people if they want to try it out and if they'll give us, their opinions.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah, just to make sure that you're not like, oh, this is great, and everybody's like, no, it's not.
I've had that happen before. Yep, I've had that happen before, and we're in the process of also changing our packaging, because I thought those, those are called stand cap bags.
Uh-huh.
So. And I thought, oh, this is a great idea. They're going to look awesome. Well, so what happens is that, people will squeeze the bag that the barbecue sauce is in while they're, taking the seal ring off. So you open the top, you pull, and so it shoots all over their shirt. And so at first I was like, well, obviously you need to go back to school and learn the principles of displacement, but that's not very nice, and that's not a crowd pleaser. So we're gonna be moving away from that, because we get numerous people are like, there's barbecue sauce all over the place, and I'm like, well, don't squeeze the bag when you try to open it, and so we're gonna be moving to a more of a bottle style.
Okay. Oh, that's hilarious. What is your most famous product? Like your most popular?
Most famous product. Well, you know what? It's kind of neck and neck. Like the ketchup is super popular, but we did a promotion with the teriyaki sauce, and I would say now the teriyaki sauce is definitely our most popular, because people are, lose their minds over it, because they're doing like chicken wings and, chicken nuggets and use it as a marinade. So I would say our teriyaki sauce is our biggest seller, followed by barbecue. And then we have some people that are fanatics about our ketchup. So, which is really fun for me.
Oh, I bet. You know what? So do you have any recipes for French fries that are keto?
I do. I do have recipe for that, and it's super easy. So if you're into deep frying, you can deep fry or you could use an air fryer.
Uh-huh.
But what I've been doing is actually getting jicama. I can get it at Trader Joe's. If you don't have a Trader Joe's near you, you could just actually just cut jicama up into French fry size, like squares, fries. But jicama will not knock me out of keto. And when you fry them up like French fries, they taste almost identical to a French fry.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to try that. And you've done it successfully in an air fryer?
Yep, jicama fries.
Wow, I have one of those, and I swear I've
Yeah.
only used it like once or twice because
Oh,
I haven't quite figured it out.
if you're making bacon, that's like the best. It is the best way to make bacon.
No, baking it is. Have you ever baked it in the oven?
I have baked it in the oven, and I think the air fryer is better.
Really? How long does it
Yep.
take?
About 7 minutes.
Oh, that is so fast.
It is super fast, and it gets you can gauge it, but it gets very crispy.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to do that. I love like a bacon burger,
Oh yeah,
but it takes a long time to bake it in the oven.
it does, and that's how I used to do it, and it would just come out perfect. But yeah, now the air fryer, 7 minutes knocks it out super crispy.
What else do you make in it? So jicama fries, bacon.
Jicama fries, bacon. The jicama fries I actually like to make in my actual deep fryer. So we sell MCT oil as one of our products. So I actually can go into the warehouse and get a couple gallons of MCT oil that I actually put in a real fryer.
Okay, so that leads to a question.
Uh-huh.
So for those of us who don't have access to gallons of MCT oil,
Sure.
what kind of oil do you recommend putting into a deep fryer?
Um, I've used it. Peanut oil. I've read peanut oil is probably a good quality oil to use. I don't have peanut allergies, but I do have an issue with peanuts because peanuts really aren't nuts. And so I have people offer me peanut butter, and I'm like, nah, I don't really eat peanut butter. It's not really a nut. I'm just that way. I don't know why. So, but I would use peanut oil, if I didn't have access to MCT.
Okay, and then what else? Like if peanut's not a nut and you're not going to use that because it's also, I love peanut butter. I mean, my
Yeah.
grandma growing up, who I was super close to, she had a sign in her kitchen that said peanut butter's better than pot. I mean, so like
Then pot.
pot, yeah.
Cool grandma.
Yeah, she's very cool. But I've always loved peanut butter my whole life, and I don't eat it because it came up as one of my food sensitivities. So, no, besides peanut oil and besides MCT oil, what is another choice?
Safflower oil.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess there's not a good choice.
There's not. MCT oil, I think, is the best. And I mean, it kind of freaks people out when I use it in my deep fryer because it's like, holy crap, that's got to be like $60 worth of oil. And I'm like, well, not at my cost. But I mean, if you reuse it, you could probably get a good 10 uses out of it.
Oh, okay. So, okay, imagine this. So you're making your jicama fries. You made it with the first batch. You just filled it with a gallon of MCT oil. Then what do you do with the oil?
That's a really good question. I have like a little vessel that once the deep fryer's cooled off, then I have like a vessel that I pour it into, and just a lid goes on it, and I put it in the refrigerator.
So is it like a jar?
It's stainless steel. I got it on Amazon, and it's specifically made for storing oil from your from your deep fryer.
They make that stuff, huh?
They do, and it's interesting because like I've always sort of associated, deep fried food with hillbillies, and my sisters gave me a hard time when I got a deep fryer, but when I really started researching fried foods, like deep frying actually doesn't fry your food, but what it does is steam it. So when you drop it into the fryer, it sears the outside of it, and then the cooking actually goes on within that, within the seared outside. So it's almost like steaming it. but it really holds in a lot of the flavor. And, I don't know, I like fried foods.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, now that they're legal, quote unquote, that's awesome.
Right? I know.
So, okay, so really quick, just to summarize. Okay, so they're going to go to guygongketo.com to
Yep.
get your awesome products.
Yep.
And I've experimented on your website. I've looked around at recipes, and you guys have a really good library of information. So
Oh, thank you.
it's really nice. And your book is great. I mean, your products are delicious. But what would you say are your top 3 health benefits that you enjoyed by going keto?
Number one would be brain function. Like just having a clear head. Number two would be indigestion. Like I used to take Prilosec because I had such terrible heartburn, and when I went keto, I haven't taken Tums, Prilosec, or anything in probably 4 years. And then number three was actually weight loss.
Wow. Okay, so that's a new one for me. So why do you think that is with the like stomach issues?
That's super interesting. So I actually had dinner with Dom D'Agostino's partner about I guess it was 2.5 weeks ago, and we got into that. And she's a PhD, Angela Poff, and and so we got into that discussion because I brought that up too, because they asked me the same thing. It's like, what did you think the greatest thing was? And I'm like, not taking like protein pump inhibitors like Prilosec. And they were like, really? And it's like, yeah, it completely wiped out my heartburn. And I've gotten tons of emails and direct messaging from people that have had the same thing happen. And so we sat down and we really broke it down. So when you look at carbs, right? When you look at carbs and sugars, well, when you look at carbs and glucose, those things that are digested actually in your stomach. So your stomach starts breaking those things down when you're where fat actually moves through your stomach and is metabolized through your liver. And so there's less of a digestive process going on in your stomach, and more of that digestive process is pushed into your gut, and your liver is handling a lot of the, metabolizing the fats. And that's my theory. It's not really backed up by medicine, but it was supported by a couple PhDs that I know.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, I love that one. Huh.
Yeah. Like when you look at, how glucose is metabolized. I mean, some things are metabolized or broken down in the stomach. And if your stomach is doing a lot of work like that, I filled my stomach with a lot of like high glycemic carbohydrates and a lot of foods that had glucose in it. And I even at one point in time had a hiatal hernia, which is crazy to have. That's where your stomach pushes up through the hole that your esophagus goes through, and it can be pretty painful and constantly feeling full. But yeah, since I adopted keto, that hiatal hernia went away, and along with it, my heartburn.
Huh, that is awesome. Because how many people freaking have heartburn?
Millions. And when you look at how much Prilosec is sold and like the side effects of protein pump inhibitors, just go keto and you won't have to use that stuff anymore.
So when my husband had, he just went keto finally, and I don't know how strict he is, but he's trying. So, he's at least working, towards that. But whenever before he would get an acidic stomach, I would always give him HCl.
Yeah.
And that seemed to help.
Yeah. I mean, any kind of digestive enzymes or, hydrochloric acid that you could put into your stomach to help that digestive process, I think for sure. But I think that if he practices, a good solid keto lifestyle, that he's not going to have that issue anymore.
Yeah, he hasn't had it for quite a while. And he's only been keto for about, seriously, guys, I hate him. Like he went keto his first week and he doesn't need to lose weight. He's an athlete, but he lost like 6 pounds in his first week.
I
know. I'm like, whatever. I mean, for women, it's like if you lose 2, you're like, oh, you're dancing in the street. So I was like, whatever. I don't even want to tell anybody that story because then they'll get discouraged. But that's how men lose. It must be the testosterone. So, well, I just want to thank you so much, Thom. I could be talking to you forever. You have so much knowledge, and it was just so fun hearing from you. So thank you for sharing your story and coming on the show.
Thanks, Tracy. I totally appreciate that. I love your questions. I mean, there was some really good ones in there. So thank you so much for having me on and supporting keto. And yeah, I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, I could have talked to him forever. This was probably one of my longer shows, so hopefully you enjoyed it very much because it was just like all kinds of value bombs that Thom left us with, and I just so appreciated him for coming on. Try his products out. You can go to guygoneketo.com. He also said they're available on Amazon. And I'm telling you, the barbecue sauce is the bomb. So anyways, thank you so much for listening. If you have any guests that you think would be a great fit for our show, please email me at tracy@highenergygirl.com. Go out and make it a great day. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion and I could be wrong.